Welcome to the Conscious Living Podcast, conversations to educate, empower, and enlighten our world. An uplifting and inspiring series of conversations and talks with your host, Jackie Woodside. We are educating minds, empowering lives, and enlightening souls to create a world where love prevails. In this engaging podcast, we deliver exciting, positive, transformative talks and teachings designed to elevate your life. Now, let's join our host, Jackie Woodside, for this week's session.
Hi there again. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Conscious Living Podcast, where we are here to educate, empower, and enlighten our world. I, again, am Jackie Woodside, the founder and the host of the Conscious Living Podcast. I am beyond excited today to bring to the podcast somebody who I just adore and respect, who is an icon in this field of conscious living. Dr. Jon Mundy started his career in understanding what it means to live life consciously at 18 years of age, when he was the minister of 3 different churches, working at different churches all through college and through his education, was a minister for many, many years, and the founder of Miracles Magazine, which continues to grow in its readership. He is an expert teacher in the Course in Miracles and just an extraordinary contribution to the field of conscious living. So, Dr. Jon Mundy, thank you for being with us today on the Conscious Living Podcast. Anything else you want to say about yourself to help our listeners get to know you a little better?
That's enough. They'll probably get to know some other things as we go along the way.
All right. You are such a humble teacher. I love that about you. So, I love this topic, as I know you do as well. You were telling me back in 1969, you were teaching a college level course on raising consciousness.
All right.
So let's start there. I would love to hear you talk a little bit about the roots of this current, kind of conscious revolution or that we seem to be in. And you've been around this, there's honestly not a lot of people who've been in this field longer than I have. So you're one of them. And I would love to hear about some of those early roots and your experience being a consciousness teacher back in the late 60s, early 70s.
All right. I guess, a good place to start would be, I did my master's thesis on the works of Dr. Piotr de Chardin, Chardin, the
Chardin, yeah.
Jesuit, right? So that was at Southern California School of Theology in Southern Cal. And that really got me hooked into the whole idea that he was talking about evolution of consciousness as something that's happening, of course, through time,
right,
but also speeding up. And I think that we're really, really seeing a speed up right now.
I agree. Yeah, I love that.
A part of that is associated with the death of the church, because churches are dying very, very rapidly. I don't know whether you know how fast they're dying or not, but just to give you an example, in 1945, 76% of the people in the United States were identified with some religion. They went to church on Sundays, etc. By the 60s, that was done like 68%. It's now 45%.
That's actually higher than I would think. 45% of people today go to church on Sundays?
No, they don't necessarily go to church, but they
identify or affiliate.
I'm a Methodist, or I'm a Catholic, or
okay.
That doesn't mean they're showing up at church on Sunday.
Right.
It just means that they recognize that there is a faith.
They have some faith tradition affiliation.
Right.
And it's down to 45%. So 55% of our country are in the US? Is that what those statistics are?
That's just US. In
US. So 55% identify as what? Nothing at all, or spiritual, or?
Well, yeah, nothing. That's nothing. The biggest one. None. They're nuns. None, meaning they have
right, not NUNs.
No connection at all with any particular one. That's in good part because the young folks aren't there because their parents weren't there. So that makes it drop off faster and faster and faster as the decades go by.
Right.
But I think the main thing is, and having worked within the context of a church for many, many long years, the churches just aren't feeding people at the depth that they want to be fed. I mean, they want to know more about what's really going on in consciousness and how it does grow and how it does expand. And one of the problems with the church is you got dogmas and laws and creeds and doctrines and rites and rituals, and it's done this way. And all right, but consciousness keeps expanding and it keeps saying, no, we're going and we're growing. And I love Buckminster Fuller once said, you don't overcome the old by opposing it. You overcome the old by transcending it through superior methodology.
I
That
love
is what's
that.
happening. We now have superior methodology. And one of the places that superior methodology is manifest is in what you're doing right now. And we have Zoom, we have the internet. We can talk to people and you don't have to have any credentials or anything. If you can spout wisdom, if you've done your research and you know what you're talking about, if you meditate or do yoga or whatever it is that you can really, really do well and share that with other people, well, that's a great thing. I mean, that's marvelous that you can do that. And so that's disappearing at the same time this other thing is happening. And I think we feel it. A lot of people feel it. It's interesting, I think, at the same time, there's a kind of conservative bent that's going on. And I think that's a part of it because it's kind of like there's resistance on the part of the old, so to speak. It's not going to just disappear.
Yeah.
And people, no, let's hold on. Let's make this country a Christian country or whatever it is. Well, that's like a death struggle in a way. But I mean, I understand, and don't take me wrong, I think there's a great deal to be appreciated within the context of various religious traditions and churches, etc. One of the things I miss the most, I miss the singing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I miss the singing. I miss the congregational singing together. That's you're sharing your minds with that, Um,
So do you anticipate that there will be kind of an end of church or
it has already happened in Europe in particular. Europe is just about deserted. A lot of churches, it's interesting, they're becoming museums. There's a big church in Scotland that's now a museum. I was just looking at one information today about a church and it's now a museum. Yeah. So,
wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
And interesting. I've always, not always, I grew up Catholic, but in my adult life, I guess I'm not currently, but I follow the Unity faith tradition. And I was involved in I've spoken all around the country at Unity churches. I've taught at Unity Institute. So I've been very involved in the Unity spiritual movement and faith tradition. So when you talk about understanding consciousness at depth and people want more, I see that the Unity and, Science of Mind churches, Centers for Spiritual Living, the New Thought churches offer that, but many of them are dying as well.
Yeah.
So, it's almost like the institution of religion perhaps I don't think, probably not in our lifetimes, but, it's seeing a turn away from that.
It's not going to go away completely. There'll be a number hanging on for, I think, for a long time. I did the same thing, by the way, when I finally retired from parish ministry in the late 90s or like around 2001, 2, when I quit there. I went around and started doing Unity and religious science churches.
Yeah.
Did all 256 of them.
Wow.
In 18 years.
Wow. 256 Unity and Science of Mind churches around the country.
I kept a record, otherwise I couldn't have possibly.
I know you're a numbers guy. That's impressive. That's impressive. Now I'm like, how many have I spoken at?
Yeah, well, I just started the first one I did, and I just kept every Sunday I'd add on whatever I did the Sunday before.
That's really cool. So you've been around this space for a long time and you've seen the changes. I guess I'd like to hear your thought on that, Jon. Before we go further into like what it means to you to live consciously, how have you seen the evolution of the teaching of conscious living from the mid to late 60s to where we are today? How is it the same? How is it different?
Well, we just keep growing. We just keep expanding. We keep looking for deeper answers. And now we do have things like, well, I got involved, you probably know, with the Course in Miracles.
Yes.
From the get-go. And that's been but it's a very, very exciting process. It's not a religion, it's not organized that way. There's no hierarchy, nothing like that. It's a study. We just study, but it's a wonderful study. And the fact that we've got a workbook with 365 lessons, you can do one a day. So that puts discipline in there. That's keeping you engaged. And I highly recommend, even after you've completed the 365, start over again.
Start
Because
again.
it is so deep.
Yeah.
And, I'm to this day, I can read the course and go, wow, oh my God, look at that. Look what it says there, and how many times have I read this? And I didn't see that before, right? That's because it's so rich. There's so many nuggets of gold in there. And it's not just the course. There's other things, the course of love now. And we continue to get these transmissions that are going on. I just did a great talk with, and this is a bit far out, but it's very, very exciting, with a brand new book just came out this week called Awakening Humanity by Beth Geer. And she was very good at lucid dreaming.
Yeah.
And in a part of her lucid dreaming, she began to feel as though she was talking to an extraterrestrial. So there are others that are talking to angels, and we judge them by their fruits, but they're really wonderful stuff that's coming up here. And so Beth started getting this communication from, there's lines in the Course in Miracles, like the end of lesson 52. It says, "Would I not rather join in the thinking of the universe than to continue to," I'm not getting this quite right, to share what's all my personal, meaningless, private thoughts."
Right.
You
Right.
know? Well, yeah, sharing with the universe, thinking, that's much more exciting than our pitiful, meaningless, private thoughts
Right.
that we all walk around, which keep us lonely, by the way. You talked about ego before we got started. I mean, that's the ego thing. It's this trap into yourself, and it does make you lonely. But the whole idea that you can begin to share through the meditative process, through just talking to the people that think like you and feel like you do. By the way, in 2023, there's going to be the conference on the Interfaith Conference on religion in Chicago. And it's probably going to be the biggest event that's ever been. The first one was in 1893. Swami Vivekananda was one of the speakers there that got the whole thing going. But that's growing. Interfaith is growing. That's an interesting thing. Interfaith is growing. It's not a specific church. It's really recognizing, no, you're Jewish and I'm Christian, but hey, we sure look a lot alike, and I think we speak the same language. And okay, down there in the roots, there's some things that are different, but at the heart of it, we both have souls and spirits, and we're human beings, and that's what's really important. And let's not let some sort of dogma or something like that get in our way. That is very, very exciting, and that's happening worldwide, of course.
Beautiful, beautiful. The whole notion of oneness is central to kind of the unity, new thought, that there's one God, there's one expression of God, and we are it. Right?
Yeah, the foundation that I work with here in New York is called the One Mind Foundation.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that's the One Mind publishes the magazine. And
oh, okay. Wow, awesome. Yeah, exactly it. There is one mind of which we are all a part.
Right. And that's so exciting to discover that and to be part of that. That's your real expansion in consciousness right there.
Yeah, I love Charles Fillmore has a quote that says, "God is my source, and the consciousness of God is my supply." Charles Fillmore was the co-founder of the Unity Church, as you know. And I use that a lot in my teaching, but I also use it a lot in my inner world, because the second line, the consciousness of God is my supply of love and goodness and life itself, the consciousness of God. And I think, wow, like, what is the consciousness of God?
Yeah, that's a good question, isn't
Isn't that amazing? It's something that you can certainly spend your life contemplating. Yeah.
And you recognize that it's universal.
Yes, right, exactly.
No boundaries, there are no boundaries here.
Right. Yeah, I guess I understand and define God as the animating life force energy behind life itself. It is the animating energy of life. That is God. What has all things be, and that is an energy that we can all tap into, as God is my source. So I love that.
So the Course in Miracles says that mind is the energizing aspect of spirit.
Nice, exactly right. It's an energizing aspect. I love that.
Yeah.
So, Jon, I know this is a hard question to kind of put into a phrase or even a few phrases, but What does it mean to you from your expert perspective and very informed perspective? What does it mean to you to live life consciously? You know?
For one thing, it means living life happily.
Okay. So being happier is one of the ways that you know you're living consciously.
Well, yes, but you're recognizing that there is this kind of ego thing that can get in the way, and what we're really looking to do is to learn how to set that aside. It says on the very first page of A Course in Miracles, the introduction, that the purpose of the course is to help us to remove the blocks to the awareness of love's presence.
Beautiful.
All right, so what are the blocks?
Mm.
Knew what the blocks are, you could begin to set the blocks aside.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's no accident that Helen Schucman and Bill Thetford, who produced the Course in Miracles, Helen in particular, were depth psychologists, professors at Columbia University,
Wow.
Department of Research, nonetheless. So they were really, I mean, one of Bill's primary functions was really trying to figure out what this ego thing is and how it works. And that's what the course is all about as well. If I could figure out how it works, I mean, Freud and Jung and the others were beginning to tell us about what they were finding about how it works. And then once we realize that, we can begin to work with it in terms of changing it. I mean, number one, the course talks about is, and you as a psychologist, you know this, number one is repression. You know, we bury this stuff down there, and then we don't even know that it's buried. We don't look at it, we don't see it until we make some mistakes in life that really came from that part of our being rather than our conscious part of our being. Mm-hmm. The unconscious was running the show and got me into trouble. So now I better stop and look at that and think, how can I get more control? I'm not going to let this unconscious insanity run my life anymore. I mean, it does that with people getting into addictions or misuse of sexuality, etc. Well, then, no, that's not going to make us very happy. So we're learning how to get control of this thing. You know, the course is really clear. You are not a body. I mean, that is central to the understanding. I am not a body. I'm free. And what the body is, the body is very simply just a tool. You know, I don't want to diminish it, but it's a tool, it's a mechanism, it's a communication device. Primary function is communication device, which is what we're using it for right now.
Yeah.
Which is what's beautiful. And not only that, but then sharing it with the greater world and hopefully plugging in together so that we can all grow together through this whole process.
Beautiful.
But just going to repression is just one, you know, then you got to go to other, the main function of the ego that the course talks about a lot is projection. So that's another ego defense mechanism. Projection makes perception. The world you see is what you make it, nothing more than that. Right. Well, it's not more, it's not less, therefore to you it's important. It's a witness to your state of mind. It's an outside picture of an inner condition.
That's so great. It's an outside picture of an inner condition. So the world isn't the way it is. The world is the way you are. You are perceiving the world according to your kind of what I say, current and evolving conscious evolution.
Right.
So
the course is not the first to say that.
What's that?
I say certainly the Course in Miracles is not the first place to say that, but it emphasizes it very, very clearly.
Yeah, when you said the ego's job is projection, I thought, well, that's fascinating. How I've come to understand it, although I appreciate what you've just said, I see that its primary role is protection. Protection for, that the ego is designed to keep us alive. And in an earlier form of human evolution, that meant looking out for that which would kill us.
Yeah, sure.
And today, it's still kind of looking out for what would kill us, but more killing us now is more existential in terms of, hurting me, slighting me, embarrassing me, rejecting me, so that the ego is on the constant lookout for what might go wrong. But I like what you're saying, that it's a mechanism of projection. It's interesting to kind of blend the two of those.
They do blend perfectly.
Yeah, they really do blend perfectly. And that our job in conscious evolution is to consciously observe the mechanistic, I call the mechanistic nature of the ego. It's a stimulus response pattern. something happens and the ego responds.
Sinners, we call them the ego defense mechanisms, right? You use the word mechanism. Yeah. So we got to look at all these mechanisms that we use. We become more conscious of what these mechanisms are
Right.
and how they don't serve us. Now, then what can I do to find some ways of thinking and being that will really be of service and start going that way? Health is a very good central one, by the way. I mean,
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, so what are some ways of thinking and being that help us to diminish the ego and live more consciously? So health, you said, is a big one. Tell me about that.
well, let's back up just a little bit. I do want to talk about that, but central to the course is understanding the importance of responsibility, right? I'm responsible for the world I see. My thoughts determine everything that's going on, and that's what I really want to look at. I want to stop there and think about. I'm responsible for it. So I'm not responsible for that person walking down the street, but I am responsible for the way I see that person walking down the street.
Mhm.
So if there's any kind of changes that need to be made, it's rather than projection, there's your projection, rather than projection against this individual, whoever it is, what I really want to be doing is extension. The course goes to use the word extension, which means love. I want to be loving everything. I want to be loving the world. I say I want to be loving this dog and this book and this cat. And it doesn't make any difference what it is, but that's the opposite of projection. In that sense, it's still a form of projection. But what I'm projecting is the love that's going out. That's what makes me happy.
Mm.
That's what makes me happier than anything else. It's just and you seem to exemplify that. You're happy to be here.
I am happy to be here. You were just talking about that, the projection and how we see that person on the street. I just have to share a story. I was in DC a few weeks ago, and I was just it was in the city, and I was at a stop sign, and this young, kind of skinny African-American boy walked in front of my car, and his pants are hanging down, and he's got the swagger walk, and he turns around and looks over his shoulder, and I smiled at him, and he looked at me, and he said, "White lady." And I just laughed and I put my window down a little bit and I said, and laughingly, I said, "Black boy." And he looked, he was taken aback and he looked at me and he laughed and he said, "Hey, I'm light skinned," which I was curious. If I had all day, I would have loved to have asked him what that meant for him. And I
Yeah,
said,
right.
and you're handsome as can be. And he just beamed.
Oh, of course.
Right, right. I said, and you're as handsome as can be. And he just beamed and kind of swaggered on down the street. But it goes back to what what you were saying, that here he is, he's just crossing the street. He looks over his shoulder, and there I am, white lady. Like
Yeah,
whatever that meant to him,
whatever. Yeah.
right? And I just came back with this very loving black
Yeah.
boy, like that's who you are right now. That's who I see. And he could really pick up on the energy of how I said it, my playfulness, and we had this really
Yes.
lovely exchange. So that's that, whereas someone else sitting in the car, right, who perhaps had a different experience of their ego, might have, "Don't you be talking to me that way. Who do you
Yeah.
think you are? Calling 911 or he
Right,
said
right,
something
right.
to me, right?" And I just think you're right. The ego's job is projection.
Yeah.
And what are we choosing to see?
It's always that. It's so simple, isn't it?
It is so simple.
It's so simple. It's
Sometimes I
just a
say that
choice.
to people, that it's so simple you might not believe it.
Yeah. Well, practice
Right?
it for a while and see what
Right,
happens.
practice it, right?
Yeah.
Test and prove, saith the Lord. Test and
Just do it, I mean, like the grocery store clerk, the teller at the bank, whoever it is that you're dealing with, make a positive connection there, and you can really do it.
Oh, it's so fun.
Oh, yeah.
I love going out in public and trying to make eye contact with everybody, and I say hello to people, and I just have so much fun.
Let me tell you a story. This is sort of a strange one about making eye contact. I used to teach in Wainwright House in Rye, New York, and I would come in, that was back and forth to the city, and I would teach at night, and I'd get back into Manhattan maybe at 1 o'clock in the morning sometimes. So this is an interesting story. So I'm on the train at Grand Central. I go over, and just as the train is about to pull out, it's like 2 o'clock in the morning, right? There's like 5 people in the car. Just as the door is about to close, this huge black guy jumps in the back door. He's standing at the end of the subway like this. He's all white, dressed in white, has a white guitar case over his shoulder.
Oh,
And he goes, starts walking down the center of the aisle, and instantaneously, the five people, we all had eye contact with each other. What's going on here? I'm kind of a little further down in the car. He's walking down the car like this. I thought, what have I got to lose? I'm gonna look this guy straight in the eye, see what happens. I look up, I look at him, looks over at me, he sees that I'm looking at him, he winks and walks into the next car doing the same thing.
oh my gosh. Wow.
I know, I thought, whoa, this guy was just getting off on kind of
Freaking people out.
Huh?
He was just freaking people out.
Yeah, he wasn't gonna do anything. He wasn't.
That's so cool. But there it is again, that projection. You decided how you were going to see him, how you were going to interact, and it turned
Yeah.
out to be a lovely exchange. I want to go back to your thoughts about conscious living and health, because I think it's
Okay.
perhaps a topic we don't spend enough time thinking about. Because
Mhm.
earlier, John, you're not your body, but now you're saying one of the paths to conscious living is health. So, how do you marry the two of those?
Well, it's really very easy. I mean, although you're not your body, you got one at
You
the
have a
moment.
body, right?
You know, I mean, right now, probably for the next 10, 20, 30 years, you're going to be walking around with this thing. So how are you going to treat it? How are you going to, it's a tool, it's an instrument. So if it's a tool, I want to keep this thing working well. You know, I don't want to be carrying a heavy body around. I don't want to be carrying a tired body. I don't want to be carrying a body that's all arthritic and in pain with the joints and all that sort of stuff. So what do? You don't eat too much. You do some yoga to keep yourself flexible, and you do other things. I like doing breathing. I do 15 minutes with the breathing exercises at night. And I think that's so important is to keep that, whatever it is, a combination of all these things.
Yeah.
You know,
Do you
the
know
new
that
age folks
breathing
are among the
exercise?
first to get into the vegetarianism. Sorry.
Yeah, breathing exercises have been shown to lengthen the telomeres, which is the part of our physiology that shortens life. The shorter
Right.
your telomeres are, the shorter you live. And
Right.
breathing exercises have been shown to lengthen your telomeres.
That's good.
Yeah. So I love that. So eating little, breathing a lot, stretching, taking care of your body. And what was the one you were just going to say?
I don't know, but you also want to get some hard exercise in there too. I mean, even if it's just a 10-minute run, I swim is what my thing to do.
Nice.
So something like that.
Yeah, right before our call, I was out playing racquetball this morning.
That's a good little tennis, racquetball, anything like that.
Pickleball, anything that gets your heart rate up and get you sweating a little bit. Yeah, absolutely.
Move.
Your body, right?
Yeah, move the body.
So what else, John? So taking care of your body, the mechanism, I just want to hear a couple more things from you that you say that you would teach to someone who's saying, maybe somebody who's newer at this, John. Like, hey, this whole thing I keep hearing about being conscious and awakening. How do I live life more consciously?
Well, for one thing, let's go down the list. So we got the body.
Yeah.
How about the mind? Let's keep this mind sharp too. Let's keep working. Let's keep studying. Don't ever stop studying.
Oh, great.
I think if there's a preventative for Alzheimer's, I'm going to guess that a really important one was don't stop studying. Whatever that means to you, keep digging deeper into the philosophers or the psychologists or just whoever it is that's out there that's trying to help us to extend our lives.
Or even the gardeners and the woodworkers. I mean, it's any kind of, study, use your brain.
Yeah, use your brain and keep going deeper. If you're an artist, what does an artist do? Artists are, you pick something that you love doing and just throw yourself into going deeper and deeper and deeper with it. And that is the real expansion as well. That becomes the creative function. You want to do something creative. Writing is a great way of it.
Yeah.
Music. Oh my goodness, music. Throw yourself into some music. It doesn't make any difference what the field is.
Yeah.
But it's that you continue to go deeper into whatever that field is until I like it. Itzhak Perlman says, amateurs practice until they get it right. Professionals practice until they can't get it wrong.
Ooh.
All right.
Love that.
Yeah, I do too. I love that. Yeah.
Till they can't get it wrong. That's so great.
Yeah. And Itzhak Perlman, he's the the master violinist.
Master, right.
Right.
Okay, so take care of the body, take care of the mind, be happier, you said, like leading, that's an interesting juxtaposition. Which is the cart and which is the horse? Is it living more consciously that leads to being happier, or is it being happier that leads to living more consciously?
Well, they feed each other, but certainly happiness is a consequence
Of conscious living,
of deliberately choosing to live in such a way that I'm deep, really deep in my relationships.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you're married, be married and and spend time with this person that you share your life with, and go, deeper into what, be together, go out together.
That is also the number one predictor of longevity and happiness is your relationships.
Yeah.
Not necessarily being married, but exactly going as far in, going deep in to being in relationship. I was just talking to somebody, or maybe I read it online, I can't remember, of a guy who took on making a new friend every day for a year. Isn't that awesome?
Yeah, so you just find somebody to do that with you.
Yeah, and he would literally exchange text numbers and write down notes about this person and literally befriend a new person every year. And I thought, he's going to live a long life, a long and happy life.
Yeah.
I think the more people, and this is a catch-22 because a lot of people aren't committed to awakening. And sometimes it's hard to kind of just be out and around people. But, the more you have a peopled life and a well-loved life, the more conscious you'll be.
That's actually on a study that was done on happiness, which you probably know. That's number one.
Yeah.
Number one is having meaningful
relationships. Yes, exactly right. That it's I can't remember if it was it's not the Framingham Heart Study. It's the I just read about this in a book called The Awakened Brain. It's the Harvard longitudinal study on happiness, and the number one factor for happiness and longevity was relationships. So so great. Jon, and any last things you want to just put out here? So we've covered relationships, we've covered the mind, we've covered the body, we've covered how we use our brain. Any last thing you want to say that's, I guess spirit, right? That's the other one.
That's number one. I mean, that's where I was going to go.
Right. So let's touch on that before we wrap up.
All right. Well, certainly you got to have a spiritual life. And whatever it means having a spiritual life, what that means, you're going to do something like the Course in Miracles, or some pathway that you're on. Zen is really good. Zen is very close to the Course. Zen and the Course are really the same, except the mechanism is totally different. Nice. One, you're meditating, the other is you're healing your relationships. But either way, you're getting deeper into who you are.
Yeah.
So some sort of spiritual study, and what goes with that, that might be yoga, that might be vegetarianism, that might be singing with people, whatever that means to have that activity that's going on, right?
Yeah, I love that.
You can't ignore the spiritual life.
Yeah.
It's not about the material, because the material you want to have control over, but at the same time you want to control over, that's just so that doesn't bug you.
Right.
Don't have to worry about where the money's coming from. You got that worked out. The money is coming from some place and it's sufficient and growing, hopefully, so, but I want to be taking my spirit deeper. And that's involved in the relationship and in the study.
Yeah, absolutely. Taking my spirit deeper. Isn't that a great definition of living consciously? It's beautiful.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah. So, Jon, I know people are going to be so taken with your knowledge and your wisdom. How can people find you or be in touch with you or follow you?
The easiest way is just the email is Miracles Magazine, Jon, Jon, at miraclesmagazine.org. It's really simple, .org.
Okay, good. And is that the website, miraclesmagazine.org?
Yeah.
For people to subscribe to your magazine?
Yep. In fact, we're offering free 1-year subscriptions.
Oh, nice. Oh, great. I really want to encourage people to take advantage of that. I am a subscriber to Miracles Magazine. I love it. It is one of the few emails I read every single week. Jon is a beautiful writer. His posts are rich and meaningful. They have depth. And so I'm really, really fond of what you put out. So, Jon, thank you for your generosity, your time, sharing your love and your wisdom with our community here at the Conscious Living Podcast. It's delightful to spend time with you.
Sure.
Bye-bye now.
You too.